March 6, 1943. The sun beat down on the dusty headquarters of the U.S. Second Corps in North Africa, where the air hung thick with the stench of failure. Officers shuffled through the corridors like ghosts, their eyes hollow from the recent catastrophe at Kasserine Pass. Whispers of doubt echoed in every corner. American troops, fresh from farms and factories back home, had been shattered by the battle-hardened Germans. Tanks lay abandoned in the desert, rifles discarded in panicked flight, and the world had seen humiliating images of Yankee soldiers with hands raised in surrender. It was the bloodiest week yet for us ground forces, a rout that left over 6,000 casualties and shattered morale. British allies sneered at the green Americans, while German commanders like Erwin Rommel chuckled at their easy prey. But change was coming, swift and unforgiving, in the form of a man who would turn this broken army into a juggernaut. Enter Major General George Patton, Jr., striding into that somber building like a storm cloud ready to unleash lightning. At 57, he was a walking legend, polished helmet, gleaming, ivory-handled revolvers at his hips, breeches tucked into gleaming boots, and a scowl that could curdle milk. Patton wasn't here to console. He was here to conquer the rot from within. Sent by Eisenhower himself, his mission was crystal clear: restore order, instill discipline, and reignite the fighting spirit in a corps that had crumbled under pressure. Within hours of arrival, Patton issued his first edict to every soldier, from private to colonel, must wear full combat gear, including helmets, at all times. No excuses. The first victim, an officer caught helmetless at his desk. Pack your bags and get to the rear, Patton barked, ending 2 decades of service in seconds. Word spread like wildfire. The old blood and guts general was in charge, and heads would roll. By the end of day 1, the headquarters transformed from a lax office into a fortress of military precision. Officers snapped to attention, salutes crisp and mandatory. Patton's philosophy was simple yet brutal. American soldiers weren't inferior to the Wehrmacht, they were just poorly led. He'd seen it in World War I, commanding tanks through the mud of France, and he'd written the books on armored warfare between the wars. Discipline, he believed, was the forge that turned fear into ferocity. That night, in a dimly lit tent, Patton gathered his senior commanders. The failure at Kasserine wasn't the men's fault, he growled, his voice like gravel under tank treads. It was yours. Leadership failed them, and I won't tolerate failure. Eyes widened around the table. No one dared interrupt. Patton outlined his vision: aggressive tactics, lightning coordination, and an unyielding push forward. The Germans had exploited chaos defensive postures, scattered units, slow artillery. No more. From now on, Second Corps would strike first, hard, and without mercy. March 7th dawned with Patton already on the move, his jeep kicking up sand as he barreled toward the front lines. He wasn't one to command from afar, like the ousted Major General Lloyd Fredendall, who had hunkered 70 miles back during the disaster. Patton demanded to see the tactical reality with his own eyes. At the 1st Battalion headquarters, the commander was absent off at Division H. His executive officer fumbled over unit positions, maps in disarray. "You're relieved," Patton snapped at the absent leader via radio, then turned to the XO. "You have until tomorrow to know every foxhole, or you're next." The pattern repeated like a relentless drumbeat. At another post, a company commander had set up 500 yards behind his troops, citing communication needs. A leader belongs where the bullets fly. Patton roared, "See what your men see, or go home." Relieved on the spot. Over the next 3 days, Patton crisscrossed the lines, firing officers for sloppy defenses, ignorance of terrain, or simply not being forward enough. Dozens fell: battalion commanders, staff officers, anyone who smelled of hesitation. The purge wasn't random, it was surgical. Patton scrutinized everyone, from regimental heads to the lowliest lieutenant. Major General Orlando Ward of the 1st Armored Division felt the heat, his every decision under the microscope. The message rippled through the ranks: get to the front, know your ground, or pack for home. Jeep engines in the distance now triggered a frenzy: helmets on, maps ready, postures straight. Fear gripped some, but others thrived on the adrenaline. Enlisted men, still smarting from Kasserine, where they'd fled from Rommel's panzers, watched with grim satisfaction. Finally, the brass was accountable. No more excuses for the chaos that had cost brothers their lives. Patton's ruthlessness bred a new breed of leader, hungry, vigilant, and eager to prove themselves. But firing wasn't enough. Patton rebuilt from the ground up. Tactical overhauls came fast and furious. American tanks had hunkered defensively at Kasserine, easy targets for German blitzes. Patton flipped the script: armor would now maneuver offensively, exploiting gaps with speed. Artillery, once sluggish and uncoordinated, drilled to respond in minutes. Infantry practiced daily with tanks, learning to fight as one fist rather than scattered fingers. Speed and aggression. Patton bellowed in profane speeches that left jaws dropped. Hit them before they hit you. He didn't coddle the troops, he challenged them. Soldiers from Iowa cornfields and New York streets, who'd arrived wide-eyed 3 months earlier, now trained under his glare. Night patrols pushed boundaries, probing German lines to build confidence through small wins. The psychological shift was profound. Defeat's shadow lifted as men saw competence rewarded and weakness Not all changes were purges. Patton promoted the worthy with equal zeal. Omar Bradley, a steady observer during Kasserine, became his deputy handling logistics while Patton focused on fire. Bradley's calm complemented Patton's fury, a partnership that would endure. Battalion commanders who'd held firm amid the rout got bumped up, their grit forming the Corps' backbone. These men drilled Patton's ethos: discipline under fire wins wars. By mid-March, the command structure gleamed, a new staff replaced, regiments reshaped. Officers competed fiercely, knowing promotion awaited the bold. The culture shifted from defeatism to defiance. Soldiers stopped whispering about German invincibility. Instead, they boasted of payback. Yet Patton knew minds needed mending as much as tactics. The theatrical general played his role, masterfully strutting with unshakable confidence, delivering tirades that mixed vulgarity with inspiration. "You're not beaten dogs," he'd shout to assemblies of dusty troops. "You're wolves, and the Germans are sheep." No excuses for Kasserine, just a promise of victory. This energy infected the ranks. Depressed units perked up, patrols grew bolder, initiating skirmishes that yielded prisoners and intel. German reports from those days noted the change: Americans suddenly aggressive, coordinated, unpredictable. British skeptics dismissed Patton's helmet, mandates and salutes as show, but they underestimated the power of appearance. Sharp uniforms bred sharp minds. Precision drills forged unbreakable resolve. Opportunity knocked sooner than expected. Eisenhower greenlit an offensive toward Guettar, set for March 17, just 11 days after Patton's arrival. Preparations hummed with urgency. Artillery crews timed barrages to the second. Tankers rehearsed breakthroughs. Infantry memorized signals. The 1st Infantry Division, bloodied at Kasserine, led the charge eager for redemption. As dawn broke on the 17th, American guns thundered for 30 minutes, pulverizing German positions. Then the assault surged forward, infantry weaving, with armor in practiced harmony. By noon, they'd advanced 6 miles, seizing Guettar ahead of schedule. Cheers echoed across the dunes. The routed had become raiders. But the real test loomed on March 23, a ferocious German counterattack. Panzers rumbled toward American lines, aiming to repeat Kasserine's humiliation. This time, 2nd Corps stood firm. Artillery zeroed in swiftly, shredding the lead tanks. Anti-tank guns barked at point blank. Infantry held trenches with grim determination. Over 30 enemy vehicles burned in the sand, the assault crumbling. No panic, no retreat, just disciplined fury. The victory sealed the transformation. Kasserine's ghosts were exorcised. By April 7, advances stretched over 50 miles, proving Americans could match the vaunted Wehrmacht blow for blow. Guettar wasn't the campaign's grandest clash, but for U.S. forces, it was pivotal, validating Patton's iron fist. Dozens of couriers lay in ruins. Headquarters staff, battalion leaders, even some regimental heads. Most shuffled back stateside to desk jobs or training posts, their frontline dreams dashed. Some were outright incompetent, crumbling under fire. Others were solid in peace, but fragile in war. Patton cared not. He demanded combat savagery, and those lacking it vanished. No trials, just quiet reassignments to spare the Army's image. Devastating for the men, yes, patriots haunted by what-ifs, but the greater good prevailed. Survivors internalized the creed: perform or perish, rank be damned. Even word fell on April 5, a stark reminder. Patton's command of 2nd Corps proved to be a fleeting blaze of transformation, spanning just 40 intense days from March 6 to April 15, 1943. Before he was reassigned to spearhead the 1st Armored Corps in preparation for the audacious invasion of Sicily. In that brief window, he had molded a fractured force into a sharpened blade, but the handover to his trusted deputy, Major General Omar Bradley, ensured the fire didn't flicker out. Bradley, with his methodical precision and unyielding adherence to Patton's rigorous standards, stepped into the role seamlessly, maintaining the ironclad discipline, aggressive maneuvers, and psychological edge that Patton had instilled. No sloppiness tolerated. Helmets strapped, salutes sharp, and every officer held to the flame of accountability. Under Bradley's steady hand, 2nd Corps didn't just recover, it roared forward, claiming hard-fought victories in the closing acts of the Tunisian campaign, where they helped encircle and crush the remaining Axis forces by May 1943. The momentum carried them across the Mediterranean to Sicily, where they stormed beaches and shattered Italian defenses. Then onward to the grueling slog through Italy's rugged terrain, facing mud-choked valleys and fortified mountains. The once shattered divisions, the 1st Infantry, the 1st Armored, emerged as elite formations, their combat records gleaming with tales of resilience, from repelling panzer assaults to outflanking entrenched foes. Soldiers who had fled in panic at Kasserine, now charged with the ferocity of veterans, their units forged into legends that would echo through the annals of American military history. Meanwhile, Patton himself ascended to even greater heights, his star burning brighter with each campaign. Taking the reins of the 7th Army for the Sicilian invasion in July 1943, He orchestrated a lightning advance that outpaced even the British under Montgomery, capturing Palermo and Messina in a whirlwind of bold dashes and unorthodox tactics. His men adored him for the victories, even as his superiors winced at his flamboyant style, profane pep talks, pearl-handled pistols, and an unquenchable thirst for glory. But Sicily also sowed seeds of controversy. In August, during hospital visits, Patton infamously slapped 2 soldiers suffering from battle fatigue. Mistaking their shell shock for cowardice, the incidents exploded in the press, nearly derailing his career. Eisenhower reprimanded him harshly, sidelining him temporarily and forcing a public apology. Yet Patton's tactical genius couldn't be benched forever. By 1944, he commanded the Third Army in France, unleashing it like a thunderbolt after the Normandy breakout. Racing across Europe, his forces liberated vast swaths of territory, crossed the Rhine, and plunged deep into Germany, amassing over 1,000 miles of advance and capturing hundreds of thousands of prisoners. His legend was cemented, blood and guts personified, the general who turned American armor into a devastating force, influencing doctrines that emphasized speed, surprise, and relentless pursuit.
Yet the very purge that revitalized Second Corps in North Africa ignited a simmering debate that shadowed Patton's methods for decades. Admirers, from frontline grunts to strategic thinkers, hailed it as a masterstroke of accountability and necessary coal that weeded out complacency and injected vitality into a stagnant command structure. They pointed to the rapid turnaround from disorganized retreat to coordinated triumph, proving that ruthless pruning could yield a bountiful harvest in lives saved and battles won. Critics, however, decried it as needless cruelty, a sledgehammer approach that shattered morale among capable officers caught in the crossfire. Many of those relieved were not cowards, but peacetime administrators unprepared for the desert's brutal calculus. Their careers derailed without trial or appeal, relegated to obscure stateside posts where they wrestled with regret and obscurity. Patton's own words in his diary entries from March 1943 reveal his unyielding mindset. He viewed the firings as essential surgery, excising weakness to prevent gangrene from spreading through the ranks. The controversy lingered, fueling post-war analyses that questioned whether such draconian measures truly built better armies or merely bred fear. By May 13, 1943, the North African campaign drew to a triumphant close, with Allied forces capturing Tunis and Bizerte, forcing the surrender of over 250,000 Axis troops, a staggering blow that redeemed American arms on the world stage. The Green troops, who had stumbled at Kasserine, now stood tall, their confidence restored as British skepticism gave way to grudging respect. The relieved officers, numbering in the dozens from battalion commanders like those Patton caught absent from their posts to staffers lax on protocol, faded into the footnotes of history. Their names rarely mentioned beyond classified reports. In contrast, the promoted shone like beacons. Bradley ascended to command army groups, while others like Terry de la Mesa Allen of the 1st Infantry Division earned stars for their grit. Their careers propelled by Patton's discerning eye. These lessons endured far beyond the sands of Tunisia, embedding rapid commander relief as a core principle in American military doctrine. Unlike the British, who often reassigned failed leaders to quieter roles, the U.S. Army embraced adaptability, fostering a culture where performance trumped pedigree, allowing for swift corrections in the fog of war.
Ironically, the unforgiving system Patton helped pioneer eventually turned on him. In October 1945, with the war won and Europe in ruins, Patton's outspoken views clashed with Allied policy, governing Bavaria as military governor. He controversially advocated retaining former Nazis in administrative roles to rebuild Germany quickly, viewing them as a bulwark against the rising Soviet threat. The sooner Germany is rebuilt, the sooner it can act as a U.S. ally against the Soviets, he argued. His anti-communist fervor boiling over in press conferences where he equated Nazis and Democrats as mere political parties. Eisenhower, under pressure from Washington and public outcry, relieved him of Third Army command, reassigning him to a desk job compiling war histories, a humiliating demotion for the warrior who craved action. Loose lips and political naivety sank his ship, proving that even legends weren't immune to the accountability he championed. Tragically, Patton's life ended soon after in a mysterious car accident on December 21, 1945. His final words reportedly a mix of resignation and defiance. "This is a hell of a way to die." The statistics painted the miracle in stark numbers. At Kasserine Second Corps suffered 6,000 casualties, lost 183 tanks, and saw regiments decimated in a week of chaos. At Guettar from March 17 to early April they advanced 50 miles, destroyed over 50 German tanks and counterattacks, and captured key terrain with far fewer losses, around 500 casualties, marking the first time U.S. forces decisively bested Rommel's panzer. The battle's outcomes were mixed, with Axis forces retreating but not annihilated. Yet it validated Patton's reforms, improved artillery response times, integrated infantry armor assaults, and a shift from defense to offense. Leadership was indeed the alchemy, transmuting defeat into dominance. Patton broke hearts to forge victors, sacrificing the careers of a few dozen to safeguard the lives of thousands, preventing future routes that could have prolonged the war and cost exponentially more. When those revitalized soldiers charged at Guettar and beyond, they fought not from the whip of fear, but from a belief forged in the crucible of discipline. They were unbreakable, a testament to one man's unyielding vision that reshaped an army and echoed through generations of warfighters.